Archaic Records.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Archaic Records here with you again. My name is Jamie, coming to you from Nashville, Tennessee. Here to welcome you into episode number 142. Today we are going to be dusting off one of my favorite topics of conversation, that being the musical stylings of Bay Area pop-punk icons, the immortal Mr. T Experience. The Mr. T Experience formed in Berkeley, California in 1985. The band released its first album, Everybody's Entitled to Their Own Opinion, in 1986. Now, this is a band that I first discovered back in 1996, not long after I moved to the Bay Area from my hometown in Northern California. I had the good fortune of going out and seeing this band perform live one evening, and I was so taken by the band's live performance that the very next day I ran out to one of my local record stores. I do believe it was the Amoeba Records on Telegraph Avenue in Berkeley, California, where I picked up a copy of the band's first album on CD. I took it home, I listened to it, and I was immediately hooked. This is a band that I have been borderline obsessed with for going on 30 years. This is a band that I would say still safely resides in my top 5 favorite bands of all time. This is a band that I have seen live probably 8, 9, maybe 10 times between 1996 and... I'm trying to think about the last time I saw this band live. It was either in 2012, maybe it was 2014. Now, beginning in 1986, the band has released 11 full-length studio albums, their most current one being the album King Dork Approximately, which came out roughly 10 years ago. Now, this is a concept album, a companion piece, if you will, to the 2-volume YA book series King Dork, written by MTX frontman Dr. Frank Portman. Now, this is a band that, unfortunately, I don't exactly know what is going on in terms of the band's current status, because I'm not really in the inner circle, you understand. I'm not privy to what goes on behind the gates at Camp MTX. In fact, Dr. Frank has secured an order of protection against me. So I'm sort of forced to operate at arm's distance, you know. But honestly, at the end of the day, in his defense, he did catch me going through his trash cans, and I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry you have fans, Frank. Do you know the guy buys name brand chips? Seems like somebody's doing pretty well for himself. But that being said, I don't exactly know what the current state of the band is at this point in time. Now, when it comes to that most current album, King Dork Approximately, I always use the verbiage most current album because I hate to think of it as being their last. I hate to think of this band in the sort of past tense. Although, considering the fact that your last album came out probably 10 years ago and I really haven't heard much of a whiff of activity, I would say at least in probably almost a decade, I would say that it's probably leaning in that direction, although I do hate to think of this band as being retired. But that being said, I don't exactly know. That really isn't the point here. The point is that for today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at 2 of the band's lesser-known albums, perhaps 2 of the band's more underappreciated albums. Now, these are both albums that when I ranked the Mr. T Experience catalog on an episode I did about 6 to maybe 8 months ago, these were 2 albums that were sort of towards the back end of the band's catalog. The first one, which was released in 1999, is the band's album Alcatraz. Now, I remember when this album was first released, it was a little bit of a disappointment to me at the time, especially considering it was following up albums like Love is Dead, which came out in 1996, and Revenge is Sweet from 1997. Now, in 1998, the Mr. T Experience did release their cover version of the album Road to Ruin by the Ramones, which I love that album, but of course it was not an album that had any original material on it. So in terms of albums featuring original material, the album that this one followed up, Revenge is Sweet, has always been one of my favorite Mr. T Experience albums. Now, my first impression of this album when it first came out was that it was just very different from anything else that the band had done in its catalog up to that point. Now, I'm somebody at this point in time in my life, I embrace change. I look forward to it. It's something that I encourage. Back when I was 22, maybe 23 years old, it was something that was a little bit more uncomfortable for me. So this is a record that when I bought it, and of course I bought it either the day it came out or not long after that, I took it home and I listened to it. And this was one of those albums that I put it on and I just sort of waited for it to leap out of the stereo at me. And at first it sort of didn't happen. Second time I listened to it, it sort of didn't happen. Third time, and this was an album that I do remember for a while I sort of ended up shelving. I kind of went back and I listened to the material in the band's catalog that I liked better, stuff that I was more familiar with. But at this point in time, at this stage of my life, and at this stage of my fandom of the Mr. T experience, this is an album now that I do appreciate a lot more than I did at the time when it was released. Now, this is an album that, if you listen to it in chronology with the band's catalog, this is an album that's very different, I think, than any other album that the band ever released. I think this album goes in a lot of different directions. I think this album takes chances. I think that the band were sort of wanting to flex their creativity. I think that Dr. Frank Portman was wanting to sort of flex his songwriting a little bit. And as a youngster, somebody that was a little bit more closed-minded than I am today, this is a record that at the time I didn't necessarily love. Now, in 1999, Dr. Frank Portman released 2 albums. This one, Alcatraz, as well as his solo album, Show Business Is My Life, which when I ranked the Mr. T Experience catalog on that episode I did about 6 to 8 months ago, that is the album that I ranked as number 1, because to me that album, Show Business Is My Life by Dr. Frank, is basically a masterpiece. To me it is the greatest album he ever did. It is leaps and bounds above Alcatraz, even to this point. Now, if I'm not mistaken, and I have to go back and check my notes, if I'm not mistaken, when I did rank the MTX catalog on that episode a few months ago, this was the album, unfortunately, that I believe I ranked as dead last. And I always hate doing that. I always hate doing these rankings where any album by any band that I love this much has to be my least favorite, but we're about to find out if that's true or not. Because we're going to be doing a comparative study today between this album, Alcatraz, and the album which followed it, which came out in 2004. The album is entitled Yesterday Rules. Now, I do believe that this was an album that when it first came out, of course, I bought this album immediately upon its release. This was an album that I liked a considerable amount more than I liked Alcatraz, at least on its first listen. This one definitely gave me a better first impression than the album Alcatraz did. Of course, I was wanting it to be sort of a hybrid between Alcatraz and the Dr. Frank album, Show Business Is My Life, which is still my favorite album in the entire Dr. Frank canon. Now, this is a CD that I've had for a very long time. This thing is beat up. I was noticing that as I was getting ready to write this episode. The CD case is cracked, it's broken. Now, fortunately, I also have another copy of the CD, which is still sealed, $11.99, a bargain at twice the price. What's interesting about this to me is I must have bought this album at Best Buy a long time ago, and digging through the CDs that I have, I'm always a little bit surprised how much time I spent purchasing music at Best Buy, because I've always lived in a place that had great record stores. I don't know why I bought so many CDs at Best Buy back in the day, but I did, and I have a bunch of them that are still sealed. I have another Mr. T Experience record, which is still sealed. I think my CD copy of, one of my CD copies of Miracle of Shame is still sealed with the Best Buy price tag on it. I don't know if Best Buy even still sells music. I haven't been in a Best Buy in a million years, but what we're going to do today, and I did this on another episode for the Mr. T Experience a while back when I did a comparative study between the two compilation albums, Shards Volume 1 and Shards Volume 2. What we are going to be doing today is trying to figure out which one of these albums is the superior. Because I was digging through my Mr. T Experience CDs the other day, and it got me thinking, which one of these albums is actually better? I do believe that when I ranked the albums, I did rank Alcatraz, unfortunately, as the weakest in the band's catalog. But we are going to find out today which one can stand up to the other, because we are going to be competing these two albums against each other, going track for track to find out which album is the better one. Now, when I did this same sort of game, if you will, with the Shards albums 1 and 2, of course, I thought it was a really good idea. I thought it was going to be fun. I thought it would be an entertaining episode to not only record, but to go back and watch. And wouldn't you just know it, because I'm a total chud, that episode ended in a tie. I was forced to play the tiebreaker by choosing which song on the two was my favorite of the two albums. Now, this time, we should not run into that problem, because fortunately I've thought this out enough now because these two albums, both Alcatraz and Yesterday Rules, have an odd number of tracks, so you can't have a tie this time, fortunately. Now, what I was going to do in the case of a tie for this episode, just in case there was an even number of tracks on this album, which fortunately there aren't, but if I was going to do a tiebreaker for this album, I was going to base the tiebreaker on album art. Now, I couldn't do that with the Shards album, because the Shards album basically has the same artwork, which is the Jugs, but I was going to use the album artwork as a tiebreaker for this one, so I will talk a little bit about the album artwork on both of these albums. I absolutely love this album. In terms of the artwork, I mentioned before, this album is entitled Alcatraz. It was released in 1999. It was produced, of course, by Kevin Army. Now, this album features the lineup of the MTX. It was made up of Frank, Joel, and Jim. I've mentioned this many times on this channel in the past, that was probably my favorite lineup of the Mr. T Experience. Not necessarily because I think it's the best lineup of the Mr. T Experience, because I celebrate the band's entire catalog. I love all of the different incarnations of the Mr. T Experience. But for me, in my personal experience, seeing the band live, this was the band that to me represented the Mr. T Experience. I love the albums that this band put out together. I love the artwork. That is one handsome gal right there. I think I would wait for her if she had to go serve time in Alcatraz. I wouldn't kick her out of bed for committing a felony, son. I also really love the photograph on the back of the band. That is, if you are from the Bay Area, or somebody that has ever been to San Francisco and used the public transit system, that is very easily recognizable as a BART station. The blue bricks sort of give it away as either an Oakland or a Berkeley BART station. Not exactly sure where this picture was taken, but I do love the artwork on this album. As far as Yesterday Rules was released in 2004, produced by Kevin Army as well. The incarnation of the Mr. T Experience on this album is Frank, Ted, Bobby, and Jim on drums. As I mentioned before, this was an album that when it first came out, it gave me a much better first impression than Alcatraz did. I also love the artwork on the front cover of this album. That is another very handsome gal. Looks like she's got a couple of beverages, or at least one, with a fella. I also love the photographs of the band taken on the back. I love in the credits on this album, it mentions that the photographs were taken by a couple of people, and then it just says, and others. I assume these are just pictures that the band had lying around. I like the picture of Frank with the robot with the nice knockers. That is something that I can definitely appreciate. Anyway, as I mentioned before, we are going to pit these two albums together or against one another in an almighty battle royal. It reminds me of back when I was a kid, back in 1987. I think I told this story the last time I did one of these Mr. T Experience grudge match episodes. It reminds me of, as a kid, and back in the mid to late 1980s, I went through sort of a very brief phase where I was a big fan of the WWF Pro Wrestling, and my guy was Andre the Giant. And I got to tell you, I was absolutely heartbroken when Andre the Giant turned heel and he joined forces with Bobby the Brain Heenan. He, of course, and Hulk Hogan fought each other in the main event on WrestleMania 3 in Detroit, Michigan, in front of something like 100,000 fans. That match has nothing on this grudge match here today between Alcatraz and Yesterday Rules. Both of these albums contain 13 songs we are going to be going through, judging song for song, 1 against 1, 2 against 2, 3 against 3. You sort of follow along. Got my pen here. I got my trusty little stick-it pad. And we're going to keep score as we go along. Now, as of right now, I don't know exactly... I don't know anything what the outcome of this episode is going to be. Now, if I were a betting man, which I'm not, but if I were a betting man, I think it's going to be close, because I do think that both of these albums do have a little bit of clunkage on them, but they also have a nice amount of solid jingleage mixed in there. I would say that it's probably going to be pretty close. If I were going to guess going into it, I guess I'm going to predict. I think I'm going to predict that Yesterday Rules is going to win, but I do think it's going to be close. Anyway, we're going to get this thing started right now. We got 13 songs on each album to get to. So without any further ado, I do believe that we will let the old man go first. With elderly, the honors go to the elderly, if you will. So we're going to start with the album Alcatraz. Now, the first song on the album Alcatraz is a song called I Wrote a Book About Rock and Roll. Man, this is a song that I absolutely really love. I love this song instrumentally. It's clean, it's sharp, it's poppy, it's bouncy, it's up-tempo. It's got that real sort of Mr. T experience. Sort of signature sound that sort of grabs you by the onions. I think, lyrically, I think this song is relatively self-explanatory. I think this song is about music critics. People that work at magazines, people that tend to be very sort of self-impressed, thinking of themselves as bigger than the music that they cover. Somebody that uses this little sort of position that they have in life as a position of power. I love in the song how he talks about how he gets all of his CDs for free, and basically he sells them at the store down the street. The narrator in this song also sort of threatens artists that they better be nice to him because he made them and basically he can break them. I really love this song. I think that it is a perfect song to sort of kick off this record. It's one of my favorite songs on this record. As somebody that does this little YouTube channel, I sort of consider myself to be somewhat of an amateur music critic, but I tend to sort of try to skew a little bit more positive. I love that song. I love the song I Wrote a Book About Rock and Roll. Now, that song is going up against a song on Yesterday Rules. The first song on Yesterday Rules is a song called She's Not a Flower. I really like this song as well. Instrumentally, this song is very sort of up-tempo, pop punk, clean, poppy, snappy, up-tempo, bouncy, a little bit snotty. To me, the song is basically why you love the Mr. T experience. I think few songwriters can articulate this theme as well as Frank Portman. It's sort of a reoccurring theme in the music of the Mr. T experience, but it's something that I never get tired of. I think the narrator in this song is basically trying to convince either a friend or an acquaintance or a relative or somebody that, dude, your chick sucks, man. I mean, you could do so much better. And you get the sense that the narrator in this song is a little bit frustrated with the person that he's trying to convince because that person has a very sort of romantic view of this person. Now, I've been on the sort of the opposite end of that. I have dated chicks that other people thought sucked, and I was somebody that was always a little bit hesitant to sort of want to believe that the chick sucks. I've never once told one of my friends necessarily that their chicks sucked, but I've had people tell me that mine sucked, and it didn't necessarily go very well when people told me that. So I get the sense that the narrator in this song is becoming a little bit frustrated with the person that they're trying to say, hey man, this chick is no good. You can do so much better. Maybe she's cheating on you. Maybe she's beating you up. I've been down both those roads, son. Anyway, this one is tough. This one's tough. I like both these songs a lot. I Wrote a Song About Rock and Roll is one of my favorite songs off of Alcatraz. I would say that She's Not a Flower might be one of my favorite songs off of Yesterday Rules. Man, right off the bat. See, I think I'm gonna give this one to. This one's tough. I think I'm gonna give this one. I'm I'm going to give this one to Alcatraz. I'm going to give this one to... I wrote a book about rock and roll just because, man, I love both these songs, but got to go one way. There's no ties. This isn't soccer, son. So I wrote a book about rock and roll. I'm going to give that one the point for the first song. The second song off of Alcatraz is a song called Naomi. Now, instrumentally, this song is okay, but I got to tell you that this is probably my least favorite song in the entire Mr. T Experience catalog. Honestly, I mentioned that when I ranked the band's catalog, and I forget if somebody commented on that episode or they sent me an email basically telling me that I was an idiot for thinking that the song Naomi is the Jugs, and okay, I totally agree. I'm a toad. I don't know what you want from me. It's just a song I've never liked. I didn't like it in 1999. Still don't really like it today, so I got a feeling that whatever it's going up against on Yesterday Rules is going to win. I've never liked the song Naomi. I don't necessarily like the lyrics. I don't really like the instrumental track that much. To me, I mean, every band has clunkage, even the Smiths. Very little, but they do have a little bit. I would say that Morrissey in his solo catalog probably has more clunkage than the Smiths do. I don't know that the Smiths have a ton of clunkage, but hey, having one song that's clunkage isn't the end of the world. You don't have to go into therapy about it. The song it's going up against on Yesterday Rules is a song called Fucked Up on Life. Oh, can't say fucked up, Jim. That's the name of the song. Fucked Up on Life. Instrumentally, I love this song. It's got kind of a 60s inspired pop punk kind of vibe to it. To me, this song is the anthem of the loner. I am sort of the narrator in this song. I didn't have many friends growing up. I think I had one friend in grammar school. I had one friend in middle school. I had one friend in high school. And as an adult, I haven't really done much better. I am definitely an observer. I am an introvert. I consider myself to be a social bench warmer, if you will. I think the song Fucked Up on Life is awesome. I think it's one of the best songs off Yesterday Rules. Lyrically, to me, it is very relatable. I love the instrumental track. That one wins easily. I think almost any song in the Mr. T Experience would beat Naomi. Again, I'm not trying to pick a fight with anybody. If you love the song Naomi, that's fine. I'm sure there's a place in your town where you can get your ears checked if you'd like to. So that point goes to Yesterday Rules, unfortunately. Sorry. It's not unfortunate. Friendly competition. These two guys are friends at the end of the day. All right, the next song off of Alcatraz is a song called Self-Pity. This is a song that I really like a lot. Instrumentally, I think the song is okay. It is a little bit disjointed, and I don't really love the vocal cadence of it. To me, it's a little bit jerky. It sort of feels like you're trying to put a sock on a wet foot. Lyrically, though, I do love this song. I've definitely been the guy that the narrator is sort of describing in this song. I love the lyric, alienation makes the world go round, and as a fashion statement, it's absolutely sound. I mean, that's the one thing about this band. That's one thing about all of the music and books that Dr. Frank Portman has produced throughout the course of his careers. I mean, I think you would be hard-pressed to find many people in the world, especially in this sort of genre, in the sort of pop-punk 90s genre, that are any better songwriters than he is. I just always have a tendency to geek out on his lyrics. I love the song Self-Pity in terms of its lyrics. Now, this is one of those songs I was talking about. When this album came out, it just has a different kind of feel to it. It doesn't feel like your typical Mr. T Experience song instrumentally. And back in 1999, when this album first came out, I was 22, I was 23 years old. It didn't really do a lot for me. To me, yeah, instrumentally, it's still not my favorite song on the record, but as somebody that has gotten older and I think has diversified my musical palette, at least, I have a lot more respect for the fact that the band were willing to sort of change things up. I think they challenged themselves on this record. I think that this is one of those songs that doesn't sound like your typical Mr. T Experience song. Now, to me, it's not necessarily my favorite song in the band's canon, but looking back on it now, I definitely admire the effort that it took, at least. The song after that Or the next song I should say on Yesterday Rules is the song "Oh Just Have Some Faith in Me." I really love this jingle. Instrumentally, it's pretty simple, but it's just a perfect little pop song. Lyrically, I really like this song a lot. Also, another one of my favorite lyrics, at least on the Yesterday Rules album, is the lyric from this song where he says, "Smart things come in stupid packages." I love the song, "Have a Little Faith in Me." That one I think is pretty easy. I think I'm going to give the point to Yesterday Rules because I love the song, "Have a Little Faith in Me." Self-Pity, lyrically I like that song, but again, I think what costs that song the point is the sort of jankiness of the or the wonkiness to me of the melody and the vocal cadence. So for me, I'm going to give that one to Yesterday Rules. The next song after that on Alcatraz is the song "Hey Emily." I like this song instrumentally. This song is really nice. It does have a couple of wonky tempo changes, so again, there are parts that I don't love the vocal cadence on. Lyrically, I love this song. This song is about a couple that you sort of get the sense is always on the verge of breaking up, or at least the female character in this song is always threatening to leave her fella, whereas the fella, you kind of get the sense he kind of gets a little bit sort of fed up with this reoccurring game. And I don't want to say he necessarily calls her bluff, but he's basically like, okay, go ahead. Where are you going to go? Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? Who are you going to find that's better than me, sister? I do like this song a lot. It's a song that I've always sort of liked. Again, it's got a couple weird tempo changes. I don't necessarily listen to the Mr. T Experience for tempo changes, but I appreciate it a lot more now. This song has got a tough challenge ahead of it because it goes up against the song "Big Strange Beautiful Hammer" off of Yesterday Rules, which I love. I don't know how a lot of MTX fans feel about the acoustic songs in the band's catalog and the Mr. T or in the Dr. Frank solo catalog as well. I always love the acoustic songs. It's something that over the years I always got really into. I love when they throw a couple of those songs on each album. Now this song also, and I've said this in the past, and you can snicker at it, you can sneer if you'd like, but this song, in my opinion, it also shows off something that I've always said about Dr. Frank Pointman, that is that when he wants to, and he takes it seriously, he actually has a very beautiful singing voice. I love his vocal performance on this song. I said the same thing when it came to, I believe it's the song "Sad, Sad Shadow" off of the "Show Business Is My Life" album. I think that's the last song on "Show Business Is My Life." I love that song. I love his voice on that song. I love this song. This song has always been one of my favorite songs off of this record. I love the lyrics. I love the melody. This one wins. That's easy. This one beats "Hey Emily" easily. So the point goes to Yesterday Rules. I don't know. Maybe this one won't be as close as I thought it was going to be. Anyway, the next song off of Alcatraz is a song called "Tomorrow is a Harsh Mistress." I really like this song. Actually, this is probably one of my favorite songs off of the Alcatraz record. Man, you talk about some of the best lyrics on either of these albums. They appear in this song. I love the lyric. I'm in love, but it's not really there. I'm in love with something I said in a prayer. Later on in the song, he says, "I'm what you might call the once and future nothing at all." Again, I mentioned this before. I absolutely love Dr. Frank Portman's lyrics. I've heard people make the argument, the complaint, if you will, that sometimes his songwriting tends to be a little bit too long-winded. I absolutely disagree with that statement. If that is the position that you have, you and I are going to go outside, remove our shirts, and have a tussle. Because not only is that sort of his signature, but he's such an incredible songwriter. I love his words. It's no wonder he's written such great books. This band, man. This band should have been so much bigger than they ever were. And it sort of felt like back in 1997, I think I've said this before, but back in 1997, when the band released its album Revenge is Sweet, it felt like they were right on that trajectory. I mean, they were coming out of their 1996. They were coming out of the 1996 album "Love Is Dead," which I think arguably is, maybe it's not even arguably, which is probably the band's biggest album to date. They had built all of this momentum up, and by the time Revenge is Sweet came out, it really felt like this band was right on the launching pad. Now, as a kid who had discovered this band basically just a year before, I didn't necessarily love the idea of this band becoming the next big MTV Green Day Rancid thing, because this was my band. This was a band that I had discovered not that long ago. This was a local band. That was something that was very important to me, and there was just something about the Mr. T experience that resonated with me. Now, I don't know why it was, but back in 1997, I felt as if you sort of had to be worthy of liking the Mr. T experience. When I went to shows back in those days, I would be on poser patrol. I'm not even exaggerating. I realize as a grown man now in his 40s how stupid that sounds. But it's true. This was a band I was very protective of. I don't know why I thought I was qualified to be the band's gatekeeper, but I was. You had to be worthy, in my opinion, to worship at the altar of the Mr. T experience. And I mean, this band really, looking back on it now, this band should have been huge. This band is better than Green Day. This band is better than Rancid. This band is better than NoFX. It's better than most of the bands that reach that next level. For some reason, this band just didn't quite get there. Now, I'm not saying this is ever going to happen, but if I ever had an opportunity to interview Dr. Frank Portman, I would ask him if he thought in 1997, the way I think, coming out of Love Is Dead 1996 into Revenge Is Sweet 1997, I would like to know if he felt as if that band was right on the precipice, because honestly, back in those days, it felt like it was. I remember I've told this story a million times. In fact, I have it right here, within arm's reach. I remember in 1997, the band appeared on the cover of BAM magazine, which I have right here, this was a newspaper that was prevalent in California back in the 1990s. I remember when BAM went out of business, when they released their final print copy. Man, it was heartbreaking, but I used to live for BAM magazine. I think most people that lived in the Bay Area or Southern California back in those days, they lived for BAM music. It was free. It was well written. They wrote good reviews. It had all of the live shows upcoming. And I remember that day specifically because we had a BAM newspaper box right outside my work. I got to work one morning and I saw that the Mr. T Experience were on the cover of it, and I felt torn. I was like, yes, fuck yeah. But then part of me was like, oh no, I don't want these guys to be Green Day, man. But they should have been. They should have been huge. I mean, there's two bands from California that I will always sort of try to pimp and try to put out there as much as my dumb little platform allows me to. The Mr. T Experience being one of them, and the other being a band that is from my hometown, Chico, California, a band called Vomit Launch. Both of those California bands need to be celebrated so much more than they are. I mean, we've gotten to a point to where literally every artist that has ever existed has either had a book written about them or a documentary, or in most cases, both. There needs to be a documentary about the Mr. T Experience. There needs to be a documentary about the band Vomit Launch. If you don't get off your tuchus and do it, I just might. And I have no filmmaking experience whatsoever. Anyway, that song is going up against the song called Sorry for Freaking Out on the Phone Last Night off of Yesterday Rules. Now, this is tough because I love both of these songs. Sorry for Freaking Out on the Phone Last Night is a quintessential Mr. T Experience. I love this song. What this song reminds me of is an instance I'm not very proud of, but that's one fun thing about being a fan of the Mr. T Experience, especially if you grew up as somebody like I did that was socially awkward, especially around the ladies, a little bit nerdy, a little bit of a social outsider. These songs are so relatable, and what it makes me think of is back in the Bay Area when I was living in the Bay Area between 1996 and 1999. I moved to Seattle in 1999 at the end of 1999, and when I lived in the Bay Area, I worked in a bakery. I worked at a bagel shop, and I worked really weird hours because I was a baker, so I had to be at work at 2 a.m. and I basically worked until noon. Now, I had this girlfriend. She was my first ever girlfriend, and her and I were going through sort of the demise of our relationship, and it was the first time I was ever with anybody. It was certainly the first time I was ever going through a relationship that felt like it was going to end. And I remember a lot of times when I would leave for work at like 1:30 in the morning, she would have all of these friends show up at her apartment, many of which were male friends, and this was something that I was very jealous of, something I didn't know how to handle, and I became convinced. Now, whether it's true or not, I don't know. I don't have any evidence one way or the other, but I became convinced that this girl was cheating on me. And I remember one morning I got to work because I had to get to work, and there's this whole process of things you have to do before you actually start baking, and it took about an hour before you were actually baking. You know, you get the oven warmed up, you get the kettle going, you pull the dough out, you let it proof, and there was this whole thing you had to do. That's not really the point here. The point is that I got to work this particular morning, and I was just obsessing over the fact that she had all of these male friends over at her house, and I became convinced that she was cheating on me. Whether she was or not, I don't know. But one morning, it got the best of me, and I kept calling our apartment over and over, and she was not answering the phone. Her and I had probably gotten into some sort of a tussle before I'd left for work, and I remember I kept leaving these not very nice messages on our answering machine. And I remember I got home from work that morning because I usually worked from 2 a.m. to noon, so I got home that afternoon, and man, I was in the doghouse, son. I also was embarrassed. Can I be honest with you? I was also embarrassed of my conduct, my behavior, if you will. This one's tough. Oh my God, this one. I love both these songs. Man, I love both these songs. I'm going to go with Tomorrow's a Harsh Mistress because lyrically, man, that one is the jugs to me. One of the best written songs on the entire album. I think all his songs are just so well written. It sort of makes you hate the guy, right? He's in a great band. He's a great musician. He's a great writer. He's very articulate when he's interviewed. It just makes you hate the guy. Anyway, not really. Next one after that on Alcatraz is the song called Two of Us. I like this song. To me, this song kind of reminds me of the song Population Us off of after Dr. Frank's solo album, Show Business Is My Life, which is one of my favorite songs. Probably, oh man, that's tough. Population Us might be my favorite song in the entire Dr. Frank canon. I love that song. That's a song I put on every single playlist I ever make for my wife. This song, Two of Us, is another song that I always add whenever I make a playlist for my wife. To me, it's your sort of typical Us Against the World song. We'll never be one of those, failed relationships. I should know because I've been in a long string of them is basically the gist of the lyrics of the song. I love it. I love this song. I love The Two of Us. That song is going up against a song called The Boyfriend Box off of Yesterday Rules. This song is okay. I don't dislike it. I think it's fine. It's definitely not my favorite. If I'm not mistaken, this song is about a girl that sort of keeps mementos from a sort of failed relationship. And what it makes me think of is when I first started dating my very first girlfriend I ever had, the girlfriend I blew up on the phone from work. In the last story, she and I first started hanging out. We were both living in our hometown of Chico, California. And the way we met was we were neighbors. We were living in the same apartment complex not too far from the university, and we lived just a couple of doors down from each other. And her and I were both taking college classes, and apparently she had seen me around campus. I basically looked similar to what I look like now, minus 50 years of hard aging. I had the same hair and all that, and I remember sort of recognizable around Chico back in the mid-1990s. This was sort of before alternative culture had sort of taken over. I hate the word alternative, but her and I both had very sort of distinct appearances. And I remember one day I was walking home from campus, and she went skidding past me on her bicycle, at which point in time she stopped, and she pointed at me. She said, "Hey, I know who you are." Or she said, "I know where you live." And at that point in time, I was sort of unimpressed by her, and I was sort of unimpressed by most of the people that lived in the world. So I was like, good for you. She's like, "I'm your neighbor. I live like 2 doors down from you. I wave to you all the time. You never say hi to me." And I told her, I said, "Well, I'm sorry. I don't necessarily mean to be a jerk, but I sort of tend to walk with tunnel vision. I don't notice people around me all the time." And so she's like, "All right, well, I'll see you around." And she buzzed off. She's like, "Hey, we should hang out sometime." And I was like, "All right, I'm probably not going to hang out with this chick. I don't have really any interest in her." And so she buzzes off on her bike, and I walk home. And I get to my apartment, and who should be sitting there on my stoop but this neighbor of mine that I had just met about 10 minutes ago. And she told me, she's like, "I told you I knew where you lived." So what she did was she invited me down to her apartment. Her and I hung out, and I had to work that night. And so I went down, I met some of her friends, I was hanging out there, and I began to sort of feel this sort of chemistry between her and I. And there was a picture of a guy on the wall, and this guy, I remember distinctly, he was sitting on like a motorcycle, and I remember I asked her, I said, "Well, who's that guy?" Because I was sort of looking at her apartment. Her and I both had the sort of same way. We both sort of decorated in the same way, where our apartments were just like this, basically, just shit everywhere. And so I was sort of taking in her decor, and I saw this guy sitting on a motorcycle. I was like, "Who's that guy?" And I don't remember what she said his name was, but I said, because I kind of liked this girl right away, and I got the sense that, wasn't exactly sure how she felt about me, but this guy in this picture was extremely good looking, and for some reason he was sort of threatening to me. So I sort of mildly lashed out at his picture. I said, "Oh, he looks like he's kind of a douche." And she's like, "Yeah, that's my ex-girlfriend, or my ex-boyfriend. He died." And I remember I felt like that. I was like, well, look at the time. I should probably hit the old dusty trail. Fortunately, she forgave me, but it reminds me of the song Boyfriend Box, because she had this picture of this guy that she had dated. He ended up dying in a motorcycle accident, I believe. The picture was of him sitting on a motorcycle, and it didn't take long in that relationship for me to find out what my shoes taste like. This one I think is pretty easy, honestly. Boyfriend Box is a song that I sort of like, but I really love the song Two of Us, so I think Two of Us is going to get the point on that one. The next song on Alcatraz is a song called Our Days Are Numbered. I remember the first time I was sort of really, reading along with the lyrics to this song. I remember thinking to myself, okay, yeah, this is sort of, your typical Mr. T experience geography in terms of songwriting, because it says day 1 started out badly. Day 2 left me perplexed. I'm like, yes, this is why I love this band. But the song sort of takes this long, winding road that eventually leads to a happily ever after. How often do you find happily ever afters in the world of the Mr. T experience? That one threw a curveball at me, Frank. How do you like that sports analogy, Pat McAfee? Anyway, I like this song. It's not necessarily one of my favorite songs in the band's catalog. I do like the fact that it's a little bit unpredictable in terms of its lyrical content. Like I said, the first time I remember really reading along to the lyrics of the song, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be bad. It ends up turning into a never-ending love story. I don't know if I necessarily like that. That song is going up against a song called London off of Yesterday Rules. Man, I really like this song a lot. It starts off with the acoustic guitar, then it drops into this kind of Britpop vibe. I mean, I don't know, my sort of reading into that, because the song is called London. I love the instrumental track. The lyrics around that song are great too. So for me, that one's pretty easy. I think London wins that one. So Yesterday Rules gets the point. think that's pretty easy. I would go with London on that one. The next one after that, at least in terms of Alcatraz, is a song called We're Not No One. This song has kind of a 60s bubblegum, pop-punk kind of vibe to it. This song reminds me of my wife and I. This song pretty much fits us to a T. We're both sort of outsider kids. We've both been through sort of a significant amount of trauma. We both grew up in very sort of chaotic, houses. We're both sort of weirdos. I think we both sort of struggle with our self-worth, but at the end of the day, somehow we managed to find each other. And one thing that we have done in our lives, something I'm very proud of, is her and I have created a very nice, peaceful life out here in Nashville. We recently bought a house. Chaos and all of the things that we sort of grew up around are things that aren't really allowed in our house. I think this song is proof that regardless of how much of an outsider you feel like when you walk around out there in the universe, there is that one special person possibly out there for you. I couldn't possibly be any more grateful than I am for the fact that I have found my wife and her and I have made this life together. This song always makes me think of her. This is another one of those songs that I put on every single playlist that I make for her. This song goes up against a song called Elizabeth or Fight. This song is okay. I like the instrumental track. Lyrically, I think it's fine. It's certainly not clunkage, but it doesn't exactly, leap out of the speakers at you to me. I think the song is just sort of kind of anonymous. I think that this is sort of a filler track. I think it's an album track. I don't think it's terrible. It's not anything that's objectionable, but it's also nothing that is life-altering. So, not no one easily gets the point on that one as far as I'm concerned. Like I said, that song always reminds me of my wife. The next song is a song called Reactivate Your Heart off of Alcatraz. This song is not my favorite. Lyrically, this song is pretty snug. But instrumentally, this song just sort of sits there. It's a little bit of a snoozer. Not terrible. I think I would sort of make the same argument I made about the last song, Elizabeth or Fight, when it comes to this song, Reactivate Your Heart. This is a song that, to me, it's sort of a filler track. It's just kind of an album track. It doesn't do much. It doesn't do anything to offend you. But, if I were sitting around with somebody and I was sort of, preaching the gospel of the Mr. T experience to them, and they said, "Well, Jim, I'm tired of hearing your fat mouth blab. Put the tunage on." This is not exactly the first song that I would choose. It's going up against a song called Everybody Knows You're Crying. I love this song. Instrumentally, it's clean, it's simple, it's poppy. Lyrically, this is one of my favorite songs off of Yesterday Rules. I love the track where he says, everybody says they love you, but no one ever does. Pretty much sums up. That's easy. To me, Everybody Knows You're Crying gets the point every time. That one is a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. It must be a no-brainer if even I can figure it out. The next song after that is a song off of Alcatraz called Perhaps. This is a song that I really love. I think this is a song that is true in 1999, and it's probably even more true in 2025. The lyrics of this song are awesome. It starts off by saying, and it's funny, on this album, the liner notes are sometimes a little bit hard to read because of the photographs behind them, but it starts off by saying, "Maybe the world has finally gone so wrong, it's taken all the pleasure out of being right." Brilliance! How can one man write such great songs? I love this song. To me, it's one of my favorite songs off of Alcatraz. Very prophetic, very sort of true to the world that we live in today. Today we live in this sort of gross political climate, gross sort of social media and reality TV climate. I think the song is very prophetic. I love it. It's going up against a song called Jill. I like the song. The narrator in the song is a little bit unsettling. He comes across as being a little bit obsessive, possibly being somewhat of a stalker. This character, Jill, has probably told her friends that, hey, if anything ever happens to me, check out this guy Frank, who's writing these weird songs about me because he's a little bit over the top. Even his voice on this song is a little bit nightmare-inducing because his vocal delivery in this song is really cold and dry. It's almost like sociopathic. I love it though. This one's tough. Honestly, I thought this one would be easier because I love the song. I love the song Perhaps, but Jill is awesome too. Man, I think because... Oh, man. I think based on the lyrics and how prophetic and accurate the song is to today, how much you can sort of relate to it, I'm giving the point to Perhaps. Although, and Alcatraz, or I'm sorry, Jill is awesome too. The next song on Alcatraz is the song She's My Alcatraz. I like the song instrumentally. It kind of reminds me of the theme to Secret Agent Man. I love this song. Again, it's one of my favorite songs on the album. Lyrically, it's fairly self-explanatory. It always makes me think of Alcatraz, which, as somebody that lived in the Bay Area for so long, Alcatraz is something that, yes, is touristy. It is something that when you live in San Francisco or Oakland, you don't end up doing very often. But man, I always tell people when they're asking me for advice when it comes to visiting the Bay Area, visiting San Francisco in particular, I always tell them, there's a few sort of really touristy things that you shouldn't do, or things that I think would be sort of a waste of time compared to how much greatness there is to do in San Francisco. But the act of going to Alcatraz is something that I always encourage people to do. Alcatraz is awesome. I always encourage people to walk the Golden Gate Bridge. I always encourage people to check out the Haight-Ashbury Golden Gate Park, but Alcatraz is one of my favorite things to do in the city. This song is awesome. I mean, this song is just classic Mr. T experience. I love it. That song is going up against a song called Shining, which is a song I like. It's up-tempo. It's got great lyrics, great vocals. Whoever this person is, the narrator is quite infatuated with them. Instrumentally, the song reminds me of a cross between the Dead Kennedys and the Georgia Satellites. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, that's kind of a weird mix, Jim. That sounds awful. Actually, it doesn't, okay? It sounds pretty damn good in the song Shining. I do like this song, but She's My Alcatraz, that song wins easily because that song is the jugs. That might be one of my favorite songs off the record, honestly. So, She's My Alcatraz wins. The next song after that is a song called I Feel For You. That is a song that it's got kind of a pop punk sort of rockabilly feel to it. This song is okay. This is another one of those songs that I would sort of say doesn't really leap off of the page at you. It's a little bit of a snoozer. It's kind of a filler song. Now, one thing I will mention or point out in the liner notes of the album, now I don't know how well you can see that picture, that puppet right there, but I do believe, unless I am mistaken, which I don't believe I am in this case, this picture of these two sort of creepy puppets that are on the liner notes for the song I Feel You, I Feel For You. That picture, I do believe, was taken in San Francisco at a vintage arcade that is down in the sort of Pier 39 area. Now, Pier 39 is a part of San Francisco that, you sort of take it or leave it, honestly. But like I said, people always ask me things they should do in San Francisco, and there are some touristy things that I sort of point people in the direction of. Now, I always sort of deter people from checking out Pier 39 because at the end of the day, it's not necessarily time wasted, but there's time so much better spent than that. But if you ever find yourself in or around the Pier 39 area, there is this really, really awesome vintage arcade, and I do believe that picture was taken at that vintage arcade of those two sort of creepy puppets, because I have actually taken pictures of that same exact machine. Now, I'm assuming that the vintage arcade is still there. Not saying that I know that for sure, because my wife and I left pretty much during COVID, and although I've been back to San Francisco since, I have not been to Pier 39. You're not going to see me spending my time at Pier 39. On the limited amount of time I have to go back to the city, you're not going to find me at Pier 39 at all. So if you want to avoid seeing me out in public and you're in San Francisco, hang out at Pier 39 is what I'm telling you. But I'm pretty sure that picture was taken there. I think that vintage arcade is still there. That place is awesome. So if you are dragged to Pier 39 by your less cool family or friends, check out the Vintage Arcade. It's time well spent. That song is going up against a song called Institutionalized Misogyny. Love it. It's always been one of my favorite songs in the Mr. T Experience catalog. I love the acousticness. Again, I always sort of, whenever the MTX puts out new albums, I always sort of look forward to the acoustic songs. I love his voice. Institutionalized Misogyny has always been one of my favorite songs. So that gets the point. Now, here we are. One song left from each album, and we are tied. 6-6. So this is it. It all comes down to this. I had a feeling it was going to be close, and wouldn't you know it, I was right. I always am, son. So it comes down to this. One song, take all. To find out which album is superior. Alcatraz or Yesterday Rules. Alcatraz has this to offer. We'll get by. Instrumentally, I love this song. Lyrically, I really like most of this song. The one thing about this song that I don't love, and I have a sense it might cost the album the game, is I don't love nonsensical lyrics. Like do-do-do-do-do-boo-boo-boo. I don't love that. Especially when you're as gifted a writer as Frank Portman. And there are a couple of choruses, maybe 3 in this song, where he sort of throws out this sort of nonsensical scat. Now, you know how many songs I've written in my life? You can count them without any hands. You know how many good songs I've written in my life? I'll let you know if the day ever happens. So I'm not throwing rocks here. I'm just saying, when you're as gifted a writer as Frank Portman, I don't love that. Apart from that, I really like the song. But it's getting close. I mean, you got to find a tiebreaker somewhere. Perhaps the nonsensical scat will be the tiebreaker. Going in for Yesterday Rules is the song Take All the Time You Need. I really like this song a lot. It's got a cool instrumental track. Man, it's tough. Because I do like both these songs. Man, this one's tough. Oh, this one's good. This one, Take All the Time You Need. I love this song. It's very relatable in terms of its lyrical content. Oh, I hate for it to come down to something so dumb and trivial, but I'm a dumb and trivial person. I'm going to say Take All the Time You Need gets the point, which means by a score of 7-6, Yesterday Rules. Rules, son! It was actually about as close as I thought, but at the end of the day, I'm not really surprised Yesterday Rules wins. I think, as I mentioned before, I think when I ranked Mr. T catalog, or the Mr. T Experience catalog, I do think that Alcatraz was probably my least favorite. It probably is. That being said, it is an album. Obviously, I like a lot of the stuff on it. Now, it does have some stuff that's a little bit forgettable, but at the end of the day, I celebrate the band's entire catalog. You really can't go wrong with anything that the Mr. T Experience has ever released. So check out both of these albums. If you haven't before that, do yourself a favor, go back and dig through the band's catalog. They're the Jugs, man. Like I said, easily one of my top 5 favorite bands of all time, a band that I've been listening to and preaching the gospel of since 1996. Anyway, man, thank you so much for checking out this video. This is Archaic Records. My name is Jamie, coming to you from Nashville, Tennessee. Check back for Morrissey Monday, a celebration of all things Morrissey and the Smiths, as well as other record content and album reviews throughout the week. And, I mean, unless you have anything you'd like to add, I feel like I'm pretty good. So, until next time, my friends, talk to you then.